Do you guys still serve like macchiatos and things?
Like caramel macchiato?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I get a caramel macchiato and a black coffee?
What size?
I guess the smallest size. Hi, my name's Tyler, and I'm a coffee enthusiast. This is coffee. Now, when I say that, you probably think of a certain brand, a name synonymous with coffee itself. Starbucks. Now, if you're anything like me, you've probably wandered into a Starbucks or two in your life. And if you haven't, you've at least seen your parents drink this, or your friends, or someone close to you. And when you see these drinks, you probably think, this one tastes sweet, and this one tastes dark, or bitter, or bad, or strong, or bold, or whatever. But what if I told you it doesn't have to be like that?
Made from mountain-grown beans, richly roasted and finely ground for great waking up.
Have you ever wondered what this should taste like? Or how it was grown, or how it got into this cup? I mean, for something that some people cannot live without, I don't feel like we ask this question enough. Unfortunately, it's not that kind of dry. Coffee's origin is still pretty ambiguous, and although it's been consumed for centuries, its exact date of origin is still relatively unknown. There's a tale of an Ethiopian goat herder who let his goats consume the berries which contained the coffee beans, and at night his goats could not sleep. They were restless, they had too much energy. This is a tale of the discovery of coffee, although the evidence on it is still pretty shaky and it's more of a legend than anything else. For those unsure whether or not the tale is true, it is pretty much agreed upon that Ethiopia was the origin of coffee. Even today, Ethiopia is the largest exporter of coffee in the continent of Africa and the 5th largest in the world. Somewhere between the 11th and 15th century, coffee moved to the Arabia region. There, the process of roasting the coffee before brewing it into a cup was invented. However, it wouldn't be until the 17th century that coffee would move to Europe through cafe culture. But even at this time, the understanding of coffee was still very shallow, and the science was far from being perfected. It should be noted that at this time, coffee was still seen as a commodity, and it wasn't really until the 1960s and 70s that it was starting to be enjoyed for pleasure. This would be known as second wave coffee. For clarification's sake, waves in the coffee industry kind of define ideas and trends in the coffee industry as a whole. The second wave is more defined as the pleasure enjoyment era. It's still not where we are today, which would be a third wave where we're enjoying more complex notes and stuff, but people enjoy the process of going to cafes. The thing to highlight in the second wave of coffee is that people start to enjoy the process of enjoying coffee. The idea of going to a cafe and sitting down and getting a milk-based drink was something of pleasure, and it was no longer a point of necessity. But the idea of enjoying quality coffee and focusing on the roasting and the extraction and all that stuff I'm going to talk about later, well, that wouldn't be until... Now, while I do enjoy the art and the science behind filter brew coffee, there's still plenty of gaps in my knowledge. So I decided to call upon a friend of mine. He's an industry professional, and he's co-writer of this documentary, Louis Primo.
When brewing coffee, you really just need to understand extraction. So first, to understand extraction, you need to understand the most important part of coffee brewing, which is the grinder. The most important part of your grinder is what cuts the coffee. Many people at home just have a blade grinder, which cuts the coffee into these pieces, which are not, with those you just have inconsistencies within particle size and the actual size of the coffee grounds. They're very inconsistent, which causes for your extraction to be off. When you want to get into the nuances, complexity, tasting different types of acidity, messing around with the perceived flavors in the cup, I would recommend using some type of pour-over brewer. Different types of pour-over brewers. You have the flat bottom and you have the cone brewers. What these just different styles do just affect, flat bottoms tend to have more body, a little bit more sweetness, while these cone brewers allow for a little bit more flow rate through the cone because they don't have anything stopping the coffee grounds. As those holes tend to make the water drip down slower. More contact time to the coffee tends to lead to more body. While the cone brewers have a little bit more clarity, a little bit more complexity, more acidity. And it's all about, how you want to experience your coffee. I think that is the most important. When worrying about extraction, it is personal preference, realistically. You could get a refractometer and worried about your numbers, worry about your TDS, worry about all the different aspects that go into it. But realistically, if you just make a batch brew every single day and like the way it tastes, that's not wrong.
Let's talk about espresso-based drinks. For starters, the word is espresso, not espresso. See the difference? The beginning of all espresso-based drinks is just that, a base of espresso, normally to which milk is added on top of it, either steamed or iced milk poured over. All of these espresso-based drinks really only rely on the espresso and the milk, and the thing that makes them different is the ratio between espresso and milk. For example, your latte is a 1:5 ratio of espresso to steamed milk. Next you have the cappuccino, which is an espresso to milk ratio of 1:2, or also known as an espresso to steamed milk to foamed milk ratio of 1:1:1. Next in the tier would be the cortata. The cortata means to cut, or cutting. The idea behind it is you're cutting a shot of espresso with an equal part of steamed milk, thus giving it a 1:1 ratio of espresso to steamed milk. The last one is one I hold near and dear, the macchiato, meaning to mark. The idea behind it is a shot of espresso with a dollop of milk foam placed on top, marking it with the milk foam. Now when I said the word macchiato, you might have recognized it as a Starbucks drink, but when I explained it as a shot of espresso with a dollop of steamed milk on it, you're probably a little confused. But this drink here I ordered just a couple moments ago is also a macchiato. So what happened here? Well, it's called the Starbucks effect. Believe it or not, the term, the Starbucks effect, is not only applicable to the coffee industry. It was in fact also coined in the real estate industry. The idea behind the Starbucks effect in real estate is that when a Starbucks is placed in an area, the general property value in that said area goes up. Now, as you expected, Starbucks does not only affect the real estate market, but also the coffee industry. A study conducted in the mid-2000s found that 10 years prior to the study, only 3% of all coffee-related products were premium products. A premium product is basically any product at which its price is priced 25% higher than the general product. But during the time of the study, 2000, it was found that 40% of all coffee products were premium products. It is almost a guarantee that Starbucks played a part in this substantial increase in premium products. And that study was conducted over 20 years ago. Starbucks has recognition, and it has brought popularity to coffee like nothing else. But that's not without issue. Take the macchiato, for example. How do we get a drink that is traditionally anywhere between 15 to maybe 50 calories if you really overdo it on the milk somehow? But really, it's a 5-calorie shot of espresso with a dollop of steamed milk on it. That's not a lot of calories. It's not a lot. It's little in its amount. How do we get to the smallest size at Starbucks having 180 calories in it? What happened? And I know I'm riffing on this macchiato thing, but I just want to drive it home a little, that there is serious discrepancies. And it's not only applicable because of Starbucks, but this falls in line throughout the coffee industry. I can go to Starbucks and order a macchiato, and then I go to another coffee shop and I order a macchiato, and I get a shot of espresso with a dollop of steamed milk. But because of the confusion and the misnomers and the just lack of communication of general terms, when I go to a third coffee shop, I order a macchiato and I get something that is 4 ounces. It's like a cortado. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't have full reason to it. It is without reason now because there's no consistency when the largest corporation associated with coffee in the world has a drink named the macchiato that has nothing to do with the traditional macchiato. The fact is, coffee has come a long way since just eating the fruit, but the art has yet to be mastered. On a daily basis, more Americans drink coffee than they drink tap water, yet they don't stop and think about what they're actually drinking. If we were to have a more advanced and conscious understanding of what we were consuming, it would ultimately lead to a more conscious society as a whole. And maybe even a society that stops saying the word espresso. Thank you.